Let's do a little bit of an exercise with spread so we can get the hang of it. And I'm going to use the simplest form of it, which is spreading a string. So what I want you to do is build this where, woo, look how fun this is. When you hover over one of these letters, they animate themselves on in. So I want you to write, I've given you some CSS, but you can feel free to grab that from the answer if you don't like writing CSS. Otherwise, I thought it'd be fun to try to get that yourself. And then you are just given this, an H2 tag with a class of jump, and it has spreads. Now you know that you can't hover on an individual letter inside of an H2, but you can take a look at what I've done here. If I take a look at my elements panel, look at this, H2, the class of jump. Inside of that, each one is wrapped inside in a span. So I want you to use map, a spread, and query selector all to select the element. So give that maybe 5 or 10 minutes to try do it on yourself, and then come on back to this video and I'm going to explain how we would use spreads to solve this. And welcome back. Okay, so what I would like to do here is, first of all, I would like to grab this H2 here. So I would say const heading equals document.query selector. Now I have the actual heading element, and I need to take the text out of the spread, wrap every single item in a span, and then put it back into. So I'm going to create a function. I like to call this sparan wrap, which is like wrapping every single one in spans. So I'm going to say function sparan wrap, and that is a function which takes in a word, and it's going to return a bunch of HTML where it is. So how does that work? Let's work through this together. We'll console log that word and see where we're at. I'm going to go ahead and run this. So I'm going to say sparan wrap is heading.text content. That'll give me the actual word spreads inside of it. So we got the word spreads here, but we don't want that. We want every single word to be an individual item. So what we can do is we will spread that word. I'm going to return ... word. And if we stick this in a const spans equals and console log that spans up here, we should be able to see good. Now the spreads is now in its own array. Why? Because we took every single item out of the word and spread it. But that's not good enough because we need to return not just an array, but we need to have every single letter wrapped. So that is a good use case for .map, where we're going to take in a letter and we'll return a template string where it's just a span. And inside of that, we have the letter, right? So we loop over every single letter and return that letter, but wrapped in a span. Aha, span. Okay, good, but still not perfect because we got all these commas here. We don't actually want an array. We want a string. So we just call join on the end there. There we go. That's our HTML. So we should now be able to say heading dot inner HTML equals, take the sparan wrap here, get rid of this unnecessary variable, and pass in the text content. So refresh. You don't see anything, but go ahead and inspect them. Ho, look what's happening. On page load, you can't even see it. It goes so fast. In page load, we're taking the word out, wrapping it in spans, and immediately injecting it right back into the page there. Okay, that looks good. Now let's actually do the CSS part where when you hover over a span, we need it to animate up. So I'll say jump, span, hover. It's going to say color black. Make sure it actually works here. Good. Now we know that that's working. So we can say transform, translate y, -20px. Let's see where we're at. Doesn't work. Why not? Because spans are inline and you cannot translate y on an inline element. So we'll say display inline block. That seems to be working, but we want that nice little animation. So I'm going to say transition, transform. I'm going to transition the transform property over 0.3 seconds or something like that. Looking good. Maybe a little bit faster for a nicer animation. Looks good. Now we can just go ahead and play with this translate y. So we'll say rotate 10 degrees and scale 2. Looks good. Pretty happy with that. So that's just a quick example of when you would use a spread rather than splitting and mapping over it. We can just spread the word immediately. It makes for a little bit of a nicer code base. All right, I'll see you in the next video where we look at some more examples of when we would use this in our code.